Praise the Lord for this day. It's always good to be in church on Sunday. I'm glad that y'all are here today and nowhere else. I want to encourage you folks. So this morning's message, when we get to it, it's a one-of-a-kind message. I pray it'll be an encouragement and a blessing and a challenge to your hearts concerning missions. But the evening service also, it will build on what the morning message is all about. So if you're not always here on a Sunday evening, I'll really encourage you to just make the extra, take a nap, whatever. Tell your husband to be nice to you if that's what it takes, and get yourself back Sunday evening, because I think that message is completely different, but I believe it will build on what we cover in the morning. So this morning, we are just going to talk about our ministry, how the Lord's been working lately. I told my wife, and I mentioned the preacher, that, maybe, Joni can testify also. There's a church in our area, it's called Riverside Baptist Church, great place. And when they have their missions conference, they'll use often for the Sunday school hour, one person who's on staff. They used to be on the mission field themselves, and so the wife will sit down, and my wife will sit down, and they'll talk like it's one of those morning interview shows, and she's got a list of like 20, 30 questions, because it's funny when you go to a place, even if there was 400 people in here, and I've seen it so many times in different churches, someone will say after a missionary, gives an update or shows a video, who has a question? And you might get 2 or 3, and that's about it. And it's funny, the questions kind of dry up. So I made a list of a bunch of questions that I thought if my wife was here this morning, I could ask her, she could ask me, we could go back and forth and just, answer some of the things. How often has it happened where you won't ask a question, but someone else will, and you'll go, oh yeah, I'm glad they asked that, because, now that you mention it, I wonder about that too. Or I had that same question, it just didn't pop to the top of my mind yet. So I wanted to read to you this verse, 1 Corinthians 15, 57 and 58. You're very familiar with this one. The Bible says, 1 Corinthians 15, 57, but thanks be to God, which giveth us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. That verse alone is an awesome verse, and that verse alone, most preachers can build a whole message just on that. But then verse 58 continues, therefore, my beloved brethren, be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as ye know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord. These pair of verses, as a believer, if we will read those, if our heart would be tender, if we would dwell on those, if we would let those minister to our hearts and to our conscience, will make a difference in our lives. Whenever Joni and I are traveling, and we're just back from the Philippines less than a week ago, and sometimes after you're a guest preacher somewhere, some of the folks will say, hey, can I have your, write your life verse here in one of the blank pages of my Bible. And Joni and I always use 1 Corinthians 15:58. It's nothing that we planned on. When we got involved in ministry years ago, I would put that down after I started traveling a few years before Joni did. I was traveling with other preachers and evangelists. And I would always put down 1 Corinthians 15:58. And then Joni started traveling, and some of the young ladies would come to her and say, hey, can you sign my Bible? And she would. And she put down that verse. And I thought, where'd you come up with that verse? She goes, that's just been one of my favorite verses since forever. And so just unexpectedly and unplanned, it's each of our life's verses that we share with people. And it's kind of what motivates us as far as people being in the ministry and doing what we do. I will tell people when they say, what's your ministry about? Where do you go? What do you do? I tell them, well, let me tell you this. Every year is different than every year before. And what we did last year is going to be very different from what we do this year. And what we do this year is going to be very different from what we do next year. And the reason is because our ministry is not locked into a place or even a particular country, but we're ministering with people in the ministry around the world. So I'll give you an update about our most recent mission trip. It was a 30-day trip, and we were in 4 major areas within the Philippines. And this trip was a little bit different in that when we go to the field, we are going to partner with the church, with the missionary that we are going to be with. And typically were focused on what they're doing to stay busy in the ministry, whatever that is. If they like to go to the prisons, we're going to go to a prison and preach there. If they like to go to a children's detention home, an abuse center, a police station where they have like a chaplain and a devotion for all the law enforcement, it doesn't matter what it is, but we're just with them, help them, encourage them, sort of motivate them to keep on keeping on for the Lord. And this last trip, though, there was a bit of, I would say, a need for encouragement on a personal level. So we were with churches who we know and love the people already. The first place we went, we were one day, the last day of a big mission conference in Manila, and that was like a bonus because of the timing. We happened to get to Manila, and then usually you have to spend the night before you can fly to another island. So that worked out for us. We were at that one church, but then we went to a ministry on the island of Cebu, and there's a young American couple there. And now, by the way, when someone very old says young, I mean, you don't know how young they're talking about to us. They're just, close to 40, and that's really young when you're in your mid-60s, amen? And we got together with Brother Dave and his wife, Angel Cantunbala. They are from California. They grew up near where Joni and I grew up, so we have a lot in common right off the bat. And we had met them 2 other times because we know they're sending church and they're sending pastor. And we had been able to spend maybe like 2 hours over lunch or dinner in the past. And we intended to go back and work with them back when COVID was starting at the beginning of 2020. And I think it was March. And we were going to go straight to their place and minister with them for a week. And as it turned out, we never made it to the Philippines because international travel was shut down. So that happened to us in real time as we were leaving Florida and went through Detroit. I probably mentioned that a year or 2 ago here. So we finally got to their place. They're in a little town just outside of Cebu City, which is a major city in the Philippines. And Angel has been fighting cancer for, I think, about 2.5 years. And this couple is really precious. So they've been on the mission field about 8 years, and they never had a desire to come back home when she found out she had cancer, when she found out she needed treatment, and when COVID hit. You'll remember a lot of missionaries decided, I better be in the good old U.S. when COVID came. And everybody has to figure that out for themselves and their ministry and all that. But they stayed there, and it was difficult. But we knew that we wanted to be a blessing to them. When Joni and I go somewhere with our ministry, it's different than just an old high school friend coming by. And it's different from like a beloved church member hanging out with preacher and preacher's wife for a meal or a day or whatever. Because we're co-laborers, but we're not under their ministry, we can just be a friend or a good friend in the ministry to them, whatever that means. And for them, this is part of what it meant, and it's really incredible. Here's something interesting. If you love somebody, and you're spending time with them to encourage them, God can use the smallest thing that you're able to do to make a world of difference to the lives of those people. So they have 4 sons. By the way, these are 4 of the sharpest young Christian men we have ever met. Often I've seen on the mission field that the families who are living at home like they preach at church and raising their kids that way, those are some of the godliest, most dedicated, love the Lord and want to serve the Lord with their lives, young people you have ever met. I've seen it time and time and time again. Their oldest is 20, and then there's 3 other brothers, one's 17 years old, 14, and 11. And they're all busy in the ministry. We had Saturday soul winning while we were there, and they have a smaller church. And we had about 24 people show up on Saturday to just blast the area with the gospel. And we were so happy to see that. But their sons, they love being busy for the Lord. It's hard to see that in young people. When you do, it's very special. And I understand y'all have a few young people around here that love the Lord and love to be involved, whatever it is. And so we we planned to spend, it was almost a week with this family. We were staying at a hotel not too far away. And Joni, if she loves you, she's going to end up cooking a meal for you sooner or later. And so she ended up cooking, I think, 2 or 3 meals for the family. But Angel was too weak to sit down and play. Have you heard of Phase 10? Fun little game. I think it's a little like Uno or something like that. We brought Phase 10 and another similar Monopoly game that you play with cards. A lot of fun. The parents, both of them, they didn't want so much to play themselves to fellowship and just spend some quality. They wanted us to play those games with their kids. So we sat around the table, and for hours, before dinner, before dinner, had dinner, and then after dinner, we just played some of those games and one of them they had never played before. And we just spent quality time. You know what? If you love somebody's kids, chances are, almost without fail, that mom and dad are really going to appreciate and love you more than if you just like, all right, kids, I'm here to talk to your parents, and kind of pushed them aside. And it was just a really, really sweet time together for us to be with them. And that was the heart. We know about 6 other ministries in that area. Good churches, good works, good preachers, all that. And we were able to slip away on Sunday night and preach for one of them. But we told this family that we just wanted to be with you. And so I ended up preaching for him. I think, trying to remember, we got there on a Thursday or Friday. So a Sunday morning, a Sunday night, and then a midweek service. And they were just loving it. It just meant so much for them. They hadn't had a visit from anybody from California, from their home church, in quite a while. And so they were just yearning for that, companion, that friend in the ministry. From there, we went back to an island called Mindanao. That's the island in the Philippines that has the most violent Muslim activity. It's not been super bad lately, but in the past, they're the ones who will kidnap you if they think you're a foreigner, and hold you until they can get some money. Or once in a while, they'll just kill the people who they've captured. It's just how they work. But we pulpit filled for the pastor there, Pastor Morrissey at Truth Baptist Church, on the northern part of the island, which is the safer area. Going further south is where it gets dangerous. And because we were there for a few months, about 1.5 years ago, we got really, really close with the staff. And I've not seen any ministry, large or small, where the staff has been more dedicated. It's like, you want to be in a church or a ministry where the pastor's been called to be a preacher, but if the staff know that God called them, that God's using them, that the place God wants them to serve is in the church office, as the church secretary, as a Christian school teacher. They got one guy who's their designated driver for all church activities and fix-it guy. He's got a staff, Brother Morrissey, of 5 that are just dedicated, quality people that love the Lord, love being, even though Philippines is their home, they realize, the importance of them serving there with a missionary full time. And thankfully, he's one of the few missionaries I know who's able to start a work. And I don't know if it was immediately or shortly after he got it started. He was paired up with another missionary on the next island, and then God called him to start a church. You've heard of that happening. And he started the work and has been blessed to have enough support that he could pay the wages of these 5 Filipino adults to work on staff full time. So since we had been there recently and we got to know all of them very well, we were able to have some good fellowship. I spoke at a sweetheart banquet for them. By the way, I've got a couple of jokes about being married. If you want to hear them, maybe I'll let those go before the preaching the next hour. But we had a couples banquet. It turned out really, really sweet. Let me think. That was about the 3rd week of February. We had another banquet the 1st week of March, and it was due to some sickness in the pastor's family that they didn't have it in February. So we had the first annual Sweetheart Banquet, like March 2nd, whatever day that first Saturday in March was, and that was fun also. But we had a blessed time seeing them again. Since we'd been gone that little over a year, the Lord's blessed their ministry where they've been able to purchase a property across the street. And we're talking about basically a gravel dirt road, but across the street that's about 4 to 5 times larger than their present church building. And they're super excited about it. It's got a house on it. They're using it for staff housing for the 2 sisters that are on staff, and also for their ACE Christian school. In like the living room, they transformed it into a school. So it was great to catch up with those folks. From there, we went back to Saline City, and that's where we've filled in for several months over a 2.5 year period years ago for the good pastor family. And so we know those church members and that current pastor very, very well. Had a banquet there too, a sweetheart banquet. And we did a children's feeding outreach, which is really good. By the way, if you have Facebook, please find my wife's Facebook ID, and then you'll see usually every 2 to 5 days an update about where we are, what we're doing, and what's happened on all these different mission trips. So the time went by fast. We got to go to a children's home, which we love to visit in the next city over, and spent time with the older couple who's running that ministry. They're out of California also. We've known them for about 8 years, and what we've been able to do is find a wholesale fruit distributor that when we're on our way to this children's home that has about 120 kids, and most of them, they're actually not orphans, but they're just unwanted. So it's not uncommon in that culture and some others where if a woman's married and has a bunch of kids and gets divorced, when she meets another man, he'll be willing to marry her, but he'll say, you know what, those aren't my kids. And so they'll shove them basically out the door to an auntie, to a grandparent, or to whoever. And so that's how they got a bunch of them. Others have been abandoned either on the street or at the hospital because of some physical deformity and things like that. So if I could put a ministry, a children's ministry, a spotlight on one anywhere in the world, I would love for everybody I know, for example, all of you, to just see and experience what this place is doing for these young people. So it's called Calvary Christian's Home. It's under the umbrella of Calvary Chapel, but the people that run it were brought up Baptist and have a testimony of their salvation and what they preach and teach, same as ours. And so it's really incredible to see what they're doing. The kids know they're loved, and they don't just have a, average or normal family, but they've got, a family of about 150 when you count all of the staff. They have their school on property. During COVID, because they're an enclosed area, they were just sheltered from the world, so they barely had to deal with it at all, and had very little sickness. But it's just amazing to see what people do when they give their lives to a ministry, how happy they are. And because Joni and I have been back there several times, when we come up, it's like a nice reunion, and we'll spend the better part of a day together getting caught up on everything. The last place we went was to Iloilo City. First off, we were able to meet a missionary that our home church in Florida has been supporting for, I think, more than 15 years. So that was a blessing. We met him at the port. We took a boat from the one island we were at to where he was at, and we got to meet him, see his church property, hear about his ministry and his heart, and it was great to do that. He's about our age, so I'd say he's in his 60s. He has a heart preacher to reach the younger preachers all around the island and help them understand why we're Baptists, why we believe what we believe, and all the fundamentals of the faith. It's incredible how sometimes a younger person in the ministry doesn't have a good background in all of that, and then down the road a ways they'll veer off, fork off the road this way, that way, or another. So it was really great to hear that. And then he also wanted to be an encouragement to the older pastors in the area and encourage them to continue on and have a heart for reaching the younger generation, help them understand those same kind of things. Preacher, I don't see a clock at all, so just let me know when it's getting close. So I'm sure. Okay, that's wonderful. We spent time with Rick and Becky Martin, veteran missionaries. I think they've been 40-some years in Iloilo City. And again, Ma'am Becky, she is under cancer treatment. She's using a method, I don't know if y'all have heard of it, where you kind of have to go out of the country to learn about it. It's one of those, it's basically totally eating food that's healthy for you. So they learned about it. It's called Gershon, I think. You go to Mexico and they teach you how to get fresh organic vegetables. I don't know if fruit's involved. You squeeze it and you drink it and you live off of that. And then basically the cancer has almost nothing to live on in your body to have it continue to grow. And it's kept her healthy for 2 to 3 years so far. But we spent a lot of time with Ma'am Becky, and I got to preach out at one of their, they have a big Bible college. They have Bible students all around the world, but they've got one about 45 minutes away in another town. I was able to preach for him, and that was fun because I had been to his place about 8 years ago, and he's still going on and has another church plant, and that was great for us. So last year we were really busy in the Middle East. We went to those several countries. I think I mentioned that to you all last time I was here. And then we had one mission trip to the Philippines. And so our next mission trip happens to be Italy, and that should be in about 2 months from now. There is a good work just outside of Rome, and the family serving there, their last name is Homan, Homan. And so their theme on their prayer cards, brother, you'll like this, the Homans to the Romans. And again, another family ministry. And I heard Brother Jamie preach and teach, and I was really impressed. Like one of the gifted people that just loves the Lord, and knows the Bible, and knows how to communicate with people really well. And something we didn't know when we met them, it had been maybe a couple of years ago now, he had some kind of long-going health challenge. I have no idea what it was, but he passed away sometime last year. However, his wife and all their kids felt that they could still continue to minister at that church, and so they did, and their oldest son is a young adult. He's been called to be the pastor. I think he might be sharing the pulpit with another person in the ministry there. We'll find out more. But we wanted to come back. We're bringing a suitcase of things that they asked for from the States to them to help minister to them. And then we found out that there is another American missionary up by Milan, and we're going to be with him for several days from Sunday to Thursday. And then in that same area, there's a Filipino pastor from one of the big Filipino churches that we usually see every year. And he's super excited for us to come. He's been there 15 years, and he heard me preach somewhere in the Philippines years ago when he was back visiting his home church. And so he knows us, and he's already excited. So he asked for some songbooks and some Bibles, and we've got all those lined up. So we'll have another suitcase for them to bring what they need, and that's what's going to be keeping us busy. So, as I said, I wrote down a bunch of questions about missions, mission work, and I won't go to these if anybody here has any question at all about what we've seen, where we've been, where we've gone, how we feel, or what our experiences were like. And then until we need to stop for time, when y'all run out, and I hope to get at least more than 2 or 3, 2 or 3 would be great, then I can go down some of these that I just jotted down this morning, which I said, I was going to be the interviewer and my wife was going to answer these, because it's really good for ladies to hear, because so often you're hearing the preacher talk about missions. Well, of course, his wife has her own story and sometimes a different version of the same events, or, the things that go on when you're serving the Lord together. So does anyone have any question about missions in general, missions in our ministry? Because, like I said, did I number them? I've got 12 questions ready to go. So I can do those. Okay, sir.
How do you get in communication with a lot of these international missionaries? Do you reach
Right.
out to them and let them know that you're available, or is it just kind of word of mouth and you just get a phone call one day?
Yeah, it's become easier over the years, but when I started going on mission trips, I was traveling with a group of preachers, and we got in touch with maybe up to half a dozen different ministries, some of them larger ministries that have Bible students as part of what they do. So because I was traveling with Brother Wells and some others, I got acquainted with these pastors and missionaries, and then when we branched off and started MVP Missions, I had a line. They knew who I was, and I would let them know that we're going to be like in their area, on their island, and then we would set up a schedule like that. With American missionaries, we would communicate and say, hey, we might be able to see you on this weekend. Can we do anything to partner with you and help you? And most American missionaries, they're 1,000 times happy to have an American visitor from the States come by and just see what's going on. Anybody in the ministry, they love showing you what God's been doing on their place. So whether it's like we didn't have a roof last year, this year we have a roof, or we bought some property, or we laid the foundation, or, we got 20 more chairs that we needed, whatever it is, it's always fun to see what those preachers are getting excited about. So there's plenty of opportunities. Most of the time, if we're going to be in one area, and then if we know another ministry, like within a easy flight or within that region of the world, we'll sometimes leapfrog, go to one country and then go to another. Or in the case of the Philippines, go from one island to another island to another island, like that. So, yes? That's right. That was about, that was about 2018 or 2019. We've been to that place, I think 3 different times. And then I believe just in the past week to 2 weeks in the news, there was some kind of big fire in that dump. And it's actually displaced a lot of people. So in some of those countries, I remember as a kid going to the dumps with my dad. We'd have, a back of a truck load of stuff to get rid of. And as soon as we got there and got out of the truck, and he would offload it, I would go exploring, because you can find stuff at the dump, if you know what I mean. You just start looking around and like, hey, we could fix this, or we could use this, or we could make something out of that. And I thought it was like a treasure field, as the old saying goes. But that place, they'll start a fire, and it'll be this never-ending, smoldering, burning. And I remember that was my first physical representation of hell that I saw on a mission trip when we went to a huge dump site in Cambodia. And people will live there, and they will try to pull out any metal that they can sell for scrap, any aluminum that they can get money for. If you buy a really big bag of rice, it's in those super strong bags, they'll pull those, and they'll get, a few pennies probably for each bag that they find, and turn into the recycler, because they'll reuse them for other things. But I remember that smoke. It was just never ending. It was just going and going and going. But people will rifle through, and who knows what they're exposed to as they go through all kinds of garbage. But we've got 1 or 2 pictures way back somewhere that I'll always remember that image of the fire never goes out and the smoke never stops. Like, oh man, what a picture of hell that is. How much time we got now? We're almost done. Go ahead. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, yes. So the past several months, and I think it all began, Joni, with Heather about 8 months ago, give or take. Yeah, so we were on a mission trip and found out that our oldest son's wife, who's about 37 years old, found out that she had lymphoma. So, and that's a type of cancer. Not everybody knows, the different names and things, but you learn as you go. So it's a type of cancer. If you catch it early, usually it can be treated and you can get better or completely in remission from it. But she did not catch hers early. And so when she had everything checked out, they figured out that it was stage 4. It becomes stage 4 when it's in multiple major organs. And so she had a series of treatments over about 5 months, and it shrunk the 2 biggest tumors she had, but they didn't go away. So they were planning another treatment to help protect the brain and the spine. And while she was waiting for her second treatment of that cancer treatment, She came down with Bell's palsy, so she was getting really discouraged about that, and we've continued praying a lot for her about that. So they've done a couple more PET scans. They found some areas that lit up that they wanted to check out, and she just got recently referred in this past week to the Penn University, who is a leading edge cancer treatment. They live not too far from Philadelphia, and they'll be doing a program with them over the next 2 to 3 months where they'll take out some blood, extract T cells from that. They'll make them supercharged to fight cancer, and then they'll put those T cells back into her blood, and then they'll require her to either be at the hospital or live near the hospital for a period of about 5 weeks while it's monitored. It's not a program that's nationwide. This might be the only place or one of a few that is treating lymphoma patients with that. So anyway, they've got a lot to figure out, a lot to do, and we just ask you to remember Heather and that God would give her healing. They've got 3 kids. They live north of Pennsylvania. So appreciate that, Pastor, so much. Heather. Yes. Bolton, same as ours. Bolton, Bolton. So, amen. So we'll see you in a few minutes then. Thank you. If y'all have any other questions, don't hesitate to stop me or Ms. Jones.